Hello, and welcome back. This video is about adding a level select screen. And a special thanks to all my supporters. Thank you for helping me help others. So the first thing I did was copied in a 1920 by 1080 PNG called Level Select, or TD-Level Select. Next, we're going to take our WBP options. We're going to duplicate that. We'll call it WBP Level Select. You may be sensing a theme. Next, in our player controller, I'm going to duplicate the OnOptions function. Surprisingly named Level Select. We just want to update the widget that's created, Level Select. That's good to go. In our main menu, widget. I'm just going to rename, actually back here, I'm going to rename play to Level Select. If you prefer, select level is also a good option. And I like the buttons to be appropriately named, so that's being updated as well. And then in here, we just want to copy this again so that level select calls on level select. Now back in our game instance, I'm going to create a new function. We'll call this on play level. I tricked you, I know. All we're doing in this video here is we're just going to print out the value we send along, and that value is an integer. Let's call it the index. So then back in our main menu folder, I'm going to create a new widget blueprint. We're going to call this WBP level select button. Button, slot, whatever would work there. The intent here is it's going to be a specific size. We'll make this override 100 by 100. And it's for a button. This button needs to be a variable because we want the onClick event. And when I set it to a variable, I should be able to name it, yes, just button. We'll add that event. In this blueprint, I'm going to add two new variables. The first will be index, or rather the index. That could be button index or level index or whatnot. The other one will be the prerequisites. We're calling it index prerequisites. And that just needs to be an array. We're going to be setting this up in the select or level select widget. So we want these to be instance editable. So we can just check this to make that checkbox. And while there are at least 4 ways to do this, I want to have these buttons, which will actually not be used anywhere else, so you don't technically need to do this, but it's a good lesson to have them be not as coupled. So to do that, we're going to add an event dispatcher. In this case, we're going to call it on level select button. And that is going to take an input of an integer. We'll call the index, not surprisingly. So for that, you can drag this in, it'll give you this pop-up, or you can just right-click and do call on level select button. And we're just calling that dispatcher and sending along our index. And that's all we need for the level select button. Let's create the actual level select widget. WBP level select, which I guess I created previously. Let's undo that. Oh, it doesn't like to undo file creation. Okay, we'll just delete that. Oh, right. I'd forgotten I actually just created this by duplicating the other. Okay, this is the start point of this one. We want to change the image to use the texture I created. So we'll just open brush, select on the texture, which is TD-level select. I just drew this in GIMP, and it's just a basic, bunch of lines, very easy. You may want to spend time making something that doesn't look this bad. Again, the image is 1080p or 1920 by 1080, so I want to set this to custom. Set this to 1920, 1080, and we'll have a better idea of how things are positioned. So we're going to just add a bunch of the level select buttons, which again is down in user created. So just drag this in here. We want it to be on the points here. So if we do it like this, we have the button on the point here, and then we compile, we go in, we're going to change this to the main menu level. And if I hit play, go to level select, you can see that they're not matched up. If you change the size, you can get it to a point where it's matched up, but I mean, that may be because it's the same ratio. Nonetheless, to fix that, there are a few ways to resolve this. I'm not sure what the best way is, but I'm going to go with a good enough for now approach. And what that is back in our level select, if we select the image and all the buttons, we change their anchor, not holding anything in this case, we're just switching them to center. Go back and run that. And you can see it's matching up where it was. You can play with the size. You can see that moving it around, it's matching fairly well. The one problem that we are not going to fix is that if your image is too wide, well, the ratio has the image that's too wide. You'll see that it's not going to shrink by itself. You'd have to add further logic for that to work. But if your screen's set to 1080 or a similar ratio, it should be fine. Again, this image is not stretched, so if you're on a widescreen display, then it's just going to have the black bars like this. Nonetheless, we're going to create these. I'm going to name this, I'm going to call this Level Select Button. And what I'd like to do is just have these names work for duplicating. So the way we can do that, or rather the way we cannot do that, is if I make this one _0 and then I duplicate it, it gets rid of the _0, you duplicate it again, got an _1. Maybe it just doesn't like 0. We'll undo those. If I name this _1, duplicate it, same problem. So instead what we're going to do is our first button, we're just going to name without the _1. That'll be our 0 index, which you can see over here. Just going to create another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just going to hit Control D 6 times. And then we can drag them around in here. Once you click to drag it, just check in your bottom left which button it actually is. It is kind of important. So we're putting 6 there, 5 here, 4 here, and as you can see, it's just going in reverse order. Should consistently do that. That's 3, but good to double check. That's 2, and our 1 is over here. So for each of these, we want to update the index. That's the 1, and it has a prerequisite of 0. This is our 2, has a prerequisite of 1. Our 3 has a prerequisite of 2. Our 4, did I click through there? Yes, I did. That's a prerequisite of 1. Our 5 has 2 prerequisites of 3 and 4. And lastly, 6 has a prerequisite of 5. So that done, I'll just show again. I duplicated the buttons, so they're all actually still set to center. And this still looks good, except in that case. Same thing with this. If you go too far, then it becomes wider than it is, or rather the ratio of the image is. And you'll have to use a different way to fix that, but that's, in an actual production build, so You can finagle the numbers at that point. Now we have the event dispatcher on the button. We want to actually hook that up. So we're going to do that on our event construct. Actually, it looks like I forgot to make these all variables. So let's do that. In our graph then, we have them over here. Now you may have seen in previous videos, I like to add all these controls to an array or a map and then iterate through that container to apply some logic to each. But I'm going to show you another option, which I will be changing in one of the next few videos, but it's still good to better understand how the Unreal Editor does things. So what we're going to do, we're going to drag in our first button. This is the 0, 1, which incidentally we can now rename. Not there apparently. No. We will now rename. No, I'm not zoomed in all the way. Okay, so from this row we have our event, so then we can bind event on level select button. Drag this out and call create event, not add event or add custom event. And then we're going to click create a matching function. I'm going to rename this function on level select button. The purpose of this function is to get our game instance. Also, I don't know if you noticed there, if you drag out and do get game instance, because this is not pure, we're automatically getting our BF or BPFL'd version. If you only go in the background, and now I type get game instance properly, you get all the options. So you save a little bit of time in that case if you drag it off from an exec bin. Well, time and you'll be choosing the correct one, which is good to do. And in this case, we're just calling our onPlay level, sending along the index. So the thing I was referring to, I like to make arrays and maps, but we're going to do it differently here. In an Unreal Editor, if you do something like this, and I'm just going to drag them all out here. Move this around just a little bit. So when the editor converts this blueprint code to actual code, because all these inputs are going here to the target, it's going to call this function for each of them. It's good to understand that Unreal can do this because sometimes it's a good idea. If we were going to do nothing else with these buttons, I mean, this is nice and compact. It's, fairly easy to understand. However, one caveat is that sometimes you'll accidentally have two lines going to one thing and you'll be like, why is this being called twice? They may be overlapped, very well and you don't notice, but it's something to keep in mind. It is an option, but it's not necessarily a good one. But with that running, we can test it. So if we then click on a button, we're just getting our print with the index. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video and would like to see more, you know what to do. And if you would like to support this channel, watch these videos 2 weeks early, or just want to download the project files, you can do so through my Patreon linked below.